July 2008 and Weston-super-Mare's famous Grand Pier is on fire. Millions watch in shock as the much-loved pavilion is reduced to a smouldering tangle of metal. But today, against all the odds, the owners have crazy ambitions, not just for spectacular new attractions, but to reopen in just 6 months.
The fire happened under our watch, and it's a huge feeling of responsibility. It's just not an option. You know, we've got to do whatever it takes.
But with such a tight deadline, spiralling costs and some of the plans still on the drawing board, Kerry Michael is facing a race against time to get the pier finished by the lucrative summer season. This is no ordinary building site. In the middle of the coldest winter for years, a quarter of a mile out to sea, a team of engineers are working on a structure which is more than 100 years old.
The biggest limiting factor is the sea and the beach, and you can't drive around it, and the weight restrictions on the structure itself. The waste, the thin bit of pier that goes out to the pavilion, is there's a restriction of 2 tons on each axle.
All the equipment has to be floated in by sea and lifted off by cranes that sit on barges. It can only work when the tide is out and the project is falling behind schedule. An alternative solution has to be found to get the building work back on track, so a huge platform is brought in from Wales. It'll enable the construction work to continue regardless of the tides, but it has to be specially modified to sit on Weston's notoriously sinking sands.
You can elevate this jack up to 17 metres from the seabed. And what they've done here, they developed the feet on this particular jack up to take a mobile crane. And the idea of the feet is to spread the load rather than the penetration going through the sand.
Once they're sure it won't sink, they have a small window between tides to build a massive ramp of sand which will lead up to the platform.
They've got 4 or 5 hours to complete the operation. Yeah, you've got to be positive about these things, haven't you? You've been positive so far.
It's 11 at night and the sea is on its way in. Finally, a 40-ton crane gets down the beach and onto the platform. It's a huge relief. This crane can now work through any tide or sea conditions.
It's a great bit of kit.
So clearly cost effective, but what is the cost of something like that?
Sat there, it's over £2,000 a day.
And how long have you got it here for?
I don't want to think about that.
The skeleton of the new pavilion is taking shape. At last we can get a sense of what's going to be put inside.
Funhouse is in there with another ride called Psychedelia next to it. Above us, the whole width of the building, the go-kart track. That big arm is Robo Coaster, which is a big robotic arm that carries 2 people and sort of messes them up.
The rides are being made by a firm in Gloucestershire. For Gravitron in Stroud, it's an important contract.
This is the fabrication of the seats, of the carriages for the ghost train. Once that's ready, and hopefully looks a bit like that.
The ghost train is such a traditional part of it, isn't it?
Got to be done.
It's got to be done. This is an impression of the finished pavilion, packed with attractions. A huge go-kart track spans the back of the building. It's being made here along with the carts.
We run them at different speeds. So if you've got young children on there, you can run them at a child's speed.
The company have doubled their workforce to meet the order. The workshop is rammed with colourful trains and half-finished fun houses.
This has a motor in the bottom, and as you stand on it, it spins you round. You know, it's just one of the tricks. There's actually 36 tricks going into the crazy house itself.
Tricks and ideas were gathered by Kerry and the design team. They had the hard task of visiting rides around the world to get inspiration.
So we pinched a little bit from everywhere and then came back and built our own, or designed our own.
Excellent. So there'll be nothing like this anywhere else in the world?
No, this will be unique.
The jewel in the crown for the new Grand Pier is supposed to be a 91-metre tower, designed to be seen from the motorway and miles around. But there's a big problem. The Italian company who were contracted to build the tower have pulled out at the last minute.
Right now, I can't tell you hand on heart that the tower is going to meet the deadline. We've been let down by the original manufacturer, and right at the death, they've said that they can't meet the time scale. So
they've really dropped you in it.
They've dropped us in it, yeah.
The tower's foundations sit and wait in the sand. But for Kerry, a pavilion without the showpiece tower isn't an option. Back at Gravitron, he's got some news.
We found another supplier who thinks that they might be able to deliver. And they're Swiss, and they're coming in on Monday at 12. If we don't push the button Monday, then...
Well, time's slipping all the time. Yeah.
We're not going to have it for next summer at all.
A few days later, Kerry makes the difficult decision to delay his dream of an observation tower until next year. But he remains determined that the tower will eventually be built.
We've promised to build one, and we're going to do our best to fulfil that promise.
Even without the tower, the work on the new pavilion presses on, and the roof is nearly finished. The workforce are mostly local people, proud to be building a landmark that will be enjoyed by their own children.
When you tell them that, oh, I'm working on the pier, they're going to school and that's saying, oh, my stepdad or my dad's working on the pier, and it's good to me.
There's still a lot to be done though, and the pressure is really on.
It's certainly not the highest they've done. It's certainly not the biggest they've done, but it is the biggest challenge we've had. So much pressure is on you right now to get that job done in that short space of time. We're giving it everything we've got.
Missing the summer season would be a disaster. Everyone is hoping the pier will be a beacon for the regeneration of Weston-super-Mare, bringing a new wave of tourists into the town from far and wide. The big question is, when exactly will the pier open?
It should be the middle of July. If we can make it June, we will. But you know, we'll do our best to get it open just as soon as possible. I'm hopeful for June, but we'll see.
And if there's something you'd like us to feature on a future edition of Inside Out West, then why don't you drop me a line? My address is josie@bbc.co.uk.